Lots to talk about on this Monday morning with our guest at this time. You know him as Tucker Carlson, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller. Tucker, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
You got a big piece on the Daily Caller this morning that caught my eye, which essentially the headline is "The Muslim Brotherhood Revealed," in which you kind of go into detail as to what their real agenda is. Obviously, most of it very dangerous to the U.S. And yet, a couple of headlines just from establishment media this morning: U.S. non-committal on Muslim Brotherhood joining the Egyptian coalition, and another one that says Secretary of State Hillary Clinton cautiously welcomes the Muslim Brotherhood into the talks for a new Egyptian government. How do you read all of this?
Well, I mean, if you'll go back, I'm sure you remember it, to 1979, the American left welcomed Ayatollah Khomeini back from Paris when he came back to Tehran after the Shah was forced out. And the idea was that he was a voice of the people. This was going to be a progressive regime. That the fact that he was anti-Western, anti-American, that's always a good thing for the left. That means that he's, on the side of the people. The American left, and you can check it, welcomed him. And I hope we're not seeing a repeat of that.
You know what's interesting is how consistently gullible the left is when it comes to kinds of regimes that profess to want to do something for the people, that have a quasi kind of Marxist socialist, and then wind up becoming totalitarian or fundamentalist or a combination of both.
It's again and again and again. From 1917, from the Russian Revolution to the present, that has been a consistent theme in American politics, that these so-called liberation movements in other parts of the world are embraced by the American left, and then when they turn bloody and end up murdering millions of their own people, we just sort of ignore it. Mm-hmm. It's a rare liberal political activist in the United States who has admitted, that the regimes they backed, whether it's Fidel Castro or the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, the North Vietnamese, that it was a mistake to back these people. Again, I hope that's not what we're seeing with the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm a little bit shocked that the administration, which is, after all, filled with people who aren't stupid. I mean, there are a lot of smart people in the administration, and on the foreign policy side, I think there are some responsible people, frankly. I don't think they're all crazy.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Do you think the administration has mishandled this to this point?
I do think they've mishandled it, but I'm a little bit surprised because I don't think a lot of the domestic policy of the Obama administration, but again, I know a lot of people on the foreign policy side, and, there's some very capable people, and they're not all left-wing ideologues. They're not all crazy at all. Actually, a lot of them are centrist. And I've got to think that there's a massive debate going on within the Democratic foreign policy establishment right now about the Muslim Brotherhood, because this seems dangerous to me. It seems dangerous to the United States. It seems very potentially destabilizing for the region. It seems dangerous to Israel. I don't know why we're pretending that's acceptable, that the Muslim Brotherhood might take over. It's not acceptable.
Well, it seems to me that what happens, and this is an example of what you were talking about earlier, is how easily we are called, not just the left, but sometimes even our foreign policy establishment, is how quickly they can kind of adopt our own kind of style of a very erudite and agreeable kind of American diplomacy and use it against us because they sound like they're very reasoned. I mean, when the Muslim Brotherhood says, we got no problem with the agreement with Israel, my God, that runs absolutely counter to the stuff you have on the Daily Caller today, which is their core values as dictated in the Quran and then laid out by the Brotherhood.
As one of their core beliefs, it's actually in their motto, and I'm quoting it verbatim now in English: Sharia is our law.
Yeah.
Islam is the answer. I mean, if look around the world, is anybody who believes that capable of setting up a liberal representative government? No. By definition, that's impossible. So these are, in my view, totalitarians, and they've admitted it. And so why would we be for this? So the people of Egypt can have a voice in their government? That's ridiculous. Once a government like that takes over, it'll be far more repressive than the government of Hosni Mubarak. Let's just be real. We're very naive about foreign policy. We never imagine things can be worse than they are. But the truth is, things can always be worse. And in the case of Egypt, they could be a lot worse.
All right, on to something a little lighter. The Super Bowl was played yesterday. We've had a little bit of debate this morning. My colleague here, Mr. Grandy, thinks the Super Bowl has become a grotesque experience? A grotesque.
I think it's nothing more than a marketing strategy, masquerading as a football game.
Oversaturation and everything that's bad in America. Do you think it's come to that, Tucker?
I think it probably always was that.
I think that's what I think too.
I mean, this is a country. This is the flip side of capitalism. I know conservatives are all for capitalism. I am for the free market, with very few restraints on it, actually. But there's some unattractive byproducts of capitalism, and one of them is commerce seeps into everything. Everything is a marketing opportunity. I will say, however, it's pretty cool that the Green Bay Packers won.
That is cool.
Now, I've been everywhere in this country. I have never been to Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's how small a town that is. And the fact that they have the Super Bowl winning team, the champions, from that tiny little frozen northern town where you'd think curling would be the main sport, is pretty cool.
By the way, you know who chose to live in Green Bay, Wisconsin? David Ortiz of the Boston Red Sox.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah. He apparently started playing minor league ball there when he first came from the Dominican Republic. But he has, and this is a guy from the Dominican Republic, right? Not a lot of snow, not a lot of bad weather, not a lot of cheeseheads. Lives in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Big Packers fan. Go figure.
That is bizarre.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Really? Big Poppy lives in Green Bay?
Big Poppy is a big Packer fan.
How about that?
Packing with Poppy is a local
bizarre.
show.
Yeah.
That
Hey,
is bizarre.
speaking of capitalism, we saw this morning that the Huffington Post sold for $315 million. The Daily Caller has been described as kind of a conservative Huffington Post. $315 million in your future sometime down the road, Mr.
I don't
Carlson?
know. I'm certainly impressed by it. I mean, I'm not sure how I'd feel if I were a big AOL shareholder to all of a sudden have, my company taken over by a left-wing website.
Right.
But I know Ariana, and she's a very complicated person, but I have to say, in 6 years to take $1 million investment and turn it into over $300 million, I respect that. And she did that. And I don't know. I'm impressed.
I would have to say that one of the net results will have to be that she'll have to start paying child support to Michael Huffington. Don't you think?
That is such a good point.
I mean, if you were his battery of attorneys, wouldn't you be in court right now saying, "Hey, I want a piece of that"?
My impression, I've talked to her about it, is I think they have a very amicable deal. I think she basically just completely overwhelmed him, even in divorce, and they get along. I think they get along well.
Yeah.
I wonder, though. I mean, the Huffington Post is not. Its political views are not mainstream.
No.
at
No,
all.
not a bit.
They're not. I mean, they're literally not. In other words, the majority of Americans don't have those political views. And if you're AOL, can you really do that?
All right,
I guess
well,
you can.
then that's part of a larger question I wanted to ask you, because you are, to some degree, you escaped from MSNBC, and now that they're about to be taken over by Comcast, what would you predict the future of MSNBC to be?
Well, I think that, any company with shareholders has got to be wary of extremism, and there is some extremism on MSNBC. I mean, there's more buffoonery than extremism, and Chris Matthews is not an extremist. He's just a blowhard. But there are some extremists on that channel, and I would think that would make shareholders there pretty uncomfortable. On the other hand, that stuff rates. It does pretty well. It's
Right.
doing a lot better than it did when it was a plain vanilla, whatever, America's channel or whatever they were trying to brand themselves.
Yeah, so lowercase CNN.
But do you think that this is interesting for all, especially the liberals out there who love Huffington Post and don't want to see it change? Do you think that AOL may walk it back towards the middle, or at least soften the the left wing ideology on that website?
I don't. Strictly speaking, I don't know the answer to that. My impression, and I've talked to some people who have a closer vantage than I this morning about this, and my impression is that they're in charge. That AOL is ceding control of its content to Huffington Post, and Ariana is a highly political person. I'm not criticizing her at all. Again, I like Ariana, honestly, but she is very political. She's not joking. Like, she wants to reorder American society, and is she going to pull back? Maybe. But maybe not. It sounds to me like she's really in charge.
Okay, sounds good. Always great to talk to you, Tucker. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Tucker.
Guys.